So the question is, are there any other clues to tell if it is a B wave other than a sharp 5-wave move down when it reaches a potential B wave price? It seems super tricky because B waves can also overshoot. I'm not quite sure if I understand the question properly, but I guess it's between, okay, are we in the orange B wave or are we in the white count? You can't distinguish at this point. What I can tell you is what would give us some clarity that this is a B wave rally and that we topped in the B wave. We can, because in the end, it doesn't matter whether it's a B wave or a third wave. For short-term traders, it doesn't, because you have a clear local invalidation point. We could say, as long as the Sunday low is holding, that's the last swing low, the move up can continue, right? Whether that is called a B wave or a third wave, in the end, is just labeling. And then all we do is we track support along the way. And once support breaks, it's likely a B wave top. You won't know it before. You can't tell at a certain level that we're topping until we have a break of support, right? That doesn't work. What we do normally is once we reach a first ideal target for a third wave, which is 122K in this case, we can add support for the fourth wave. Before that, it doesn't make sense. We can then just track short-term support, but I would really only call it a viable third wave once it reached the 138% extension. Then I will add support for wave 4, and only if that breaks, it's a B wave top. We measure it based on the length of the third wave, and that should then be the 50% retracement, best I can tell. At this point, it would be 114K, but let's first see if we can get to 122K, because until we are at 122K, we can't even say it's a third wave. So this would be the first ideal target. But that can also be a B wave. So you see, as long as it's a 3-wave move up, it can be a B wave. So you won't get the certainty, right? The certainty is, but you don't have it. But we can track higher prices. We can make the assumptions that we just go with the flow until support breaks. So whether you use that as a stop level or, I don't know, that's a different question then. But you won't be, and we shouldn't see any 5-wave move down, ideally, in the white scenario. So if it's the bullish count and we're on our way to all-time highs, we don't want to see any clear impulse to the downside, right? But I would rather go with the broader trend here and the zones, because sometimes you get 5 waves down. That means we have to be cautious, but it's not necessarily bearish. I mean, I've seen people that I'm following, I see lots of counts on X as well, and people said, but this is a 5-wave move down, so it has to be bearish. My view was all week that, okay, we have to consider that, but you get, on smallest time frames, you get sometimes false signals, or you might even say this was an ABC structure. So you see, context is important. I would rather use support and resistance, yes, together with the wave structures, but please understand, on the smallest time frames, trying to figure out the microstructure on a 15 or 30-minute chart, it can give you false signals. So you always have to consider what is support. As long as support is holding, the trend is still up. And at the moment, whether it's a third wave in white or the orange B wave, is really just a labeling thing. The trend is up, especially as long as we're holding here the Sunday low at $111,200. $240.